The Boer War affected the political climate of South Africa, as well as the geographical one. Without the Boer War, there would be no united effort against the blacks in South Africa. There would be no united effort against the Germans in World War I and II. There would be no alliance between the Boers and the Brits after its aftermath. The climate of South Africa at the time was just ready for a war. After all, gold disputes, mining disputes, and all that were really causing for a war. The Boer War, or the second one to be exact. The roots of this war were detailed in Uitlander, or British migrants in Transvaal rights. Britain saw an opportunity to take land from Transvaal and say it was because of the Uitlander rights. So they planned, and a certain British planner named Leander Starr Jameson began to conduct a raid. This raid was called the Jameson Raid. It failed miserably, but it caused tension between the Boers and the Brits. The Brits were furious that they had lost, and they began militarizing South Africa. At the onset of war, which was inevitably coming, the Boers numbered roughly the same as the British and their colonies in South Africa, but the British were scattered, and the Boers had more concentrated power in region. It took quite a lot of effort to concentrate the British to effect. So, with German weaponry that was sent in from Germany, Paul Kruger declared war on Britain, not only because of the Jameson Raid, but because of the militarization of the border. And Boer troops, or commandos, began moving across the border, only to meet numerically inferior numbers and scattered British all across South Africa. Eventually, the Orange Vrystaat joined along, and they began taking down South African units one by one. The British at this part of the war didn't stand a chance. The units were scattered, and all numerical equality was abandoned. After all, the Boers were more concentrated, as mentioned prior. And the Boers pushed in on a major unit at Ladysmith. They'd push in on a unit, and they'd force it away. Boer, the commander of these units, had virtually no opposition in going to Durban. However, he stated, "When God gives a finger, do not take it by the hand." So he stayed put and began diverting the wars to sieges. However, help was on the water for the Britons in South Africa, for a general named Lidwitz Buller had a plan. This plan would involve 45,000 British troops coming down to South Africa to fight 30,000 Boers and crush them with numerical superiority. The Boers couldn't stand the chance. Not only were half of them devoted to sieges, but they were also just irregulars. The only real trained units were artillerymen, and they could be completely annihilated. But that's not what happened. So, Buller mobilized his troops, which would crush the numerically inferior Boers. Or so he hoped. The Boers were, however, ready for an attack, and they charged head-on against the numerically superior British. First, Buller and his generals decided to attack the Boer position at Stormberg. This went not according to plan, and the numerically equal Boers fended off the attack. "This was just beginner's luck," Buller cried. "There's no way they could sustain another loss of victory like this." "We'll win in no time," said Buller, moving his men from Marsfontein. And now the numerically inferior Boers had to take on the numerically superior army of British. However, the Boers had another trick up their sleeve. De la Rey. Now, De la Rey was a master tactician, and he had a few plans up his sleeve. One of them with a double trench system. They used a trench in front of him in dummy positions, put his real men behind the trench, thus allowing for his men to snipe the British from a distance. And this worked spectacularly. And when the British began firing on the dummy position, that attack was repulsed, and the Boers began to throw off the British. Buller cried, that was just a stud. Alright, we'll get him next time at Colenso. This time they'll only have 5,000 men. We'll have 10,000. There's no way they can win. And then they won. At Colenso, the bloodiest engagement of Black Week. First of all, Louis Botha, the commander of these forces, and future Prime Minister of South Africa, rallied his men along a river and said, "Don't fire until you can see the white of the British eyes." And then they did so, and then the British tried to advance, and then they were cut down and slaughtered. And after this, the Boers began to push him amongst the numerically superior British and crushed them, and they ran. After this, Buller began to rethink. He needed extra men. So he called upon extra men from all around the British Isles for now. But the Boers were not idle in this time, and they began to move. And they would face these numerically superior British once again, fighting to defend their besieged towns. First at Valkrans, where they failed, the British. And secondly, at Spionkop, where numerically inferior Boers drove the British off their cop after they were horrendously outmatched by Boer artillery. Even though they numerically could overwhelm the Boers at any time, after all they had 20,000 men, the Boers only had 9,000. Buller was furious, but he could do nothing. After all, he was then replaced with a slightly more competent Guard General, Lord Roberts. After this, the Boers began to try and engage the British again, but this time with 500,000 men, the British could just simply overwhelm the Boers, despite taking heavy casualties. And soon the capitals, which were Boer, fell to Brit. And soon, however, the Boers' capitals would fall. After this, a new form of warfare was tried, however, first at Sinner's Post, where a smaller contingent of Boers defeated a slightly larger contingent of Brits. Swimmingly, this would bring on the third phase of the war, guerrilla warfare. After the previous attempts at war, the British realized that the Boers weren't simply going to stop. Shockingly, the Boers also knew this. And soon guerrilla warfare broke out. Now the Boers still controlled small pockets of land after the initial collapse of their republics, which they still called home. They occupied bits of Bloemfontein, northern Transvaal, and Jan Smuts, one of the other prime ministers that would come, Louis Botha, even came close to Cape Town. Sadly, however, the Boers were unorganized, and it was nothing like the Black Week they had experienced earlier, and most of the victories came from mere surprise. Now, Lord Roberts was in deep frustration at the man Christian de Wet who had wronged him. Christian de Wet was also the one who had instigated this guerrilla warfare at Sinner's Post. Thankfully, the British, there was a new man on the block. His name was Lord Kitchener, and he had a plan and a solution, a final solution, to put Boer citizens in concentration camps. He began locking up Boer citizens in concentration camps, and he began crush the Boer effort with 500,000 men, and eventually the Boers caved. Not willing to bear that their families were being locked up, the Boers gave in to every British demand. However, at the conference, or the Treaty for Vereeniging, the Boers got a lot more of the deal than the British did. In fact, they were promised self-governance, they were promised a union between the Cape, and they were even promised that they wouldn't be charged with fighting back. However, the Boer republics were dead, and even with governing a large bit of land, they would never see the top like they had in Black Week ever again. It isn't to apartheid, but that's a different story. The end.